What's going on, everyone? Earnings week continues. The biggest earnings week of the summer continues. And I'm in work mode. Someone asked me, like, dude, you don't dress professionally in your videos. You're right, because this is the real world for trading for me. I don't have to wear a suit and tie. I did that as principal. I get to wear what I want. It's time to get to work here. And today we are looking at Amazon, ticker symbol AMZN. Let's take a look at what has happened over the past few earnings reports. Let's take a look at where the current price action is, and let's get a feel for what potentially can happen off of its report. On Thursday, it reports in tandem with another A company, and that is Mr. Apple. So you can see today, at the time that I'm looking at this chart, we are getting a little bit of weakness in the market, some selling, but notice we are just inside of last Thursday's candle in terms of price action. People, right now, the SPX is down 20 points because things have been so strong lately, but this is needed. It's necessary, and we know that a pullback is eventually coming. But let's take a look at Amazon. So right now we are at $230.87 in terms of its price action, and like I said, we're inside of that candle from Thursday, where it did fill this gap that has existed since February 7th of 2025. And while not a huge mover like some of the other tickers, it has had a nice push higher off of its April lows. And let's see what potentially can happen off of its earnings report. And just taking a look right now, you can see we're above all the moving averages. We have not touched the 20-day exponential moving average since June 23rd, so there's quite a bit of support below it. But what happened on the previous earnings reports? Let's check it out. So we're going to start here by looking at May 1st, 2025, and really not much of a move at all. If we measure this from actually, here we go. So let's look at this May 1st move here. So from the close to the top of the next day's candle, we moved up 3.86%, $7.12. Sideways the next day, pulled back into the 10, and then this thing just started to push. So the bulls had a W on their earnings in May. So not a big mover. Again, a little over 4% on Amazon. Let's just keep going back. Let's go back to February 6th and their report here. Notice that when they were reporting, they were they actually were at all-time highs. So extended into that resistance area, and it makes sense that they would have a little bit of a pullback or correction here. And this actually triggered the start of their drop. But let's go from the close here, 238.97, and the low, let's mark that by the wick. We went down about 4.53%, so $10.82. So we had a win for the bears here. So we had a gap down in February, and really mostly everything gapped down in February because that started all the weakness surrounding tariffs. But again, Amazon was really high. It was at an all-time high, so it was due for a pullback, much like we are right now, and really across the board on everything. Let's keep going back here. This is October 31st, so Halloween's. Right here is our the day where earnings were reported. So it had a sell-off day, 186.38. This thing gapped up the next day. Let's measure that to the upper wick, $14.04, 7.53%. So the bulls took this earnings as a victory. So if we're just doing some simple counting here, 2 wins for the bulls, 1 for the bears. And really, when this gapped up here, remember, October, the end of October is typically where your buyers step in and push things up. November starts the best 6 months of the year. And following that, boom, pushed up, retraced, pushed up, and then it made that climb up to all-time highs. So just keep that in mind as we head into a weak seasonal period. Let's keep going back here. So August 1st, flash crash. We're coming up on a 1-year anniversary of the flash crash, and Amazon was not immune to it. They got punished a little bit here. So here is things, man, how would you like to be a company reporting when the flash crash was happening? So this thing, boom, dropped all the way down 12.71%, $23.39. This was a win for the bears, so we're going to write in here gap down. And so really 50-50, the last 4 reports, 2 for the bears, 2 for the bulls. But we could see after this gap down, what happened? It got bought up. And let's check that last gap down. That did not happen, but it makes sense because we were overbought at all-time highs at that point. And let's just go and check one last earnings report. So this was Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. There was a bit of a correction in the market at this time. And so from this low here, right here, this big bearish engulfing candle, to the high of that next day, it jumped 5.78%, $10.11. So this was a gap up. This was a win for the bulls. Out of the last 5 earnings reports for Amazon, we had 3 gap ups, 2 gap downs. All right. And notice when it gapped up, when we were in a correction, if we're looking here of April of 2024, it did pop. When it gapped down here, when there was weakness in the market, this was the flash crash, it pushed higher. Here, we had a little bit of a pullback into the fall. Coming off of that flash crash, we gapped up. And here, when we were up extended near all-time highs, what did we have? A gap down. And then when we were near the lows, it gapped up. The context of the broader markets, at least for the last 5 reports for Amazon, have somewhat dictated how the ticker moved. For instance, if we were up near resistances, we did get a gap down with no buyers coming in to push it back up. If we were pushed down to an area where there was support, it got bought up. So taking that into consideration and where we are now, you could see that we are back up near all-time highs. We have not made a new all-time high, and really the majority of tickers have done that since the April lows. Amazon is not one of them, so that still leaves some room on the table for this thing to run. And one thing that I'll point out too, and this is something that Mike Jones, my buddy Mike Jones over at Mike Jones Investing, has talked about, is how Amazon rarely stays overbought on the RSI. And you could see that when it gets up near that overbought level, it comes down pretty quickly. And it nearly has got there recently, but it hasn't crossed that threshold. So there still could be some room and momentum for this thing to push. So the real question is, what are we looking at for Amazon if they push higher from a technical basis? All right, so what we have seen historically, bull moves anywhere from 4 to 10%, and we're getting the same thing on the way down. We did fill this gap already. That's been taken care of. And when we look at the moving averages, we have support below us. So there potentially, let's say that we correct a little bit down into the 20 before earnings are reported. But the real question is, what can we potentially see from a bullish move, a gap up off of earnings? Let's just consider that we do push out of here, and let's say that we retest that 10-day exponential moving average before the earnings report. Let's take that 4% up from where we currently are. That would not put us at all-time highs, and you would have to think that because Amazon has not had that really strong push, that really strong move, that there's some more opportunity for this thing to push higher. And also too, it is not overbought on the RSI. And typically in order to get a decent pullback for Amazon, that has to happen. So looking at this and seeing that the last all-time high was up here at that 242 mark, let's set a bull case for 250, right, which would be about a 9% move higher for Amazon, which is not out of the question because it has moved higher than that in the past. So bull case earnings, we're just going to set this at 250, and let's change these coordinates just so we're accurate here. Let's see if we can hit that 250 area and then get a little bit of a retest, chop around. Again, if this gets overbought, we're going to see it pull back a bit, which typically happens with Amazon. But you would have to think Amazon has opportunity to the upside. Again, it's been strong, but it hasn't had the push of your NVIDIA, of your Microsoft. So there could be some opportunity here. Now, In terms of the downside, where can this thing potentially go? Again, we have solid support below us that should prop this thing up. And we could see here, we have this fat volume node around 224, but you would think that an earnings miss or a weak forward guidance would bring this thing down a little bit more than that. And again, there's this moving average here, the strong moving average is 50 simple moving average on the daily. And if we would measure that out from the price where we are right now, that would bring us down about 6.4%. And you could see that we do have a thick volume node right below that 50 that is also right above that 200 SMA on the daily. So let's actually put our bear case right here. Text bear case on earnings. And that price point is going to be 216.35. So this is the area that we want to watch. And again, this is based off of this simple moving average support that we have here, this thick volume node. If it does gap down, it can pierce that SMA. And this is where some support will come in. It'll probably consolidate, move sideways a bit. You have more support at the 200. Below that, you have the point of control. You have another volume node. So that's what we would want to watch. All right. So bull case, 250 here on Amazon, bear case 216.35. Just going based off of historically how this thing has operated, how it has performed, and just looking at where the support is. What do I see happening here with Amazon? Well, they're reporting alongside Apple on Thursday. And you guys know that I have a position in Apple, so I would like to see Apple be the one that gaps higher. But I will say Amazon does have opportunity. It does have room. I would not be surprised whatsoever to see Amazon be the one that runs, that pushes higher and hits that $250 mark, because it hasn't had that massive push that some of the other Mag 8 have had. So if I'm leaning in one direction, it's the bull case here on Amazon. Can it come down? Yes. But if we look at the Bezos call wall that we've talked about before, typically when they get extended here on Amazon, Bezos sells shares. Again, just talking about that overbought on the RSI. If that happens, that'll be interesting to see. But I'm leaning bullish here towards Amazon. And what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And let's watch and see how this runs. If it does push higher, it will lift the entire market. 2 new all-time highs, and it's reporting alongside Apple. They will not push both of them up. That won't happen, but this is going to be a blast and so much fun. So thank you for joining me here today. Let me know your thoughts below. Make it a great day, everyone. Take care. Number 4.